None of this is new. My world, the chaos around me, what I've known to be true. We think we know, but do we? Tick tock of the clock, and I see hands going all directions. Can't see your face, but I see worry in my own reflections. Something tells me you've seen this face before. Redemption waits for you, I'm sure. I see your eyes in the moon.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Impossible Conversations. I'm your host, Brandy.
I am Sean.
And there's Sean. And today we have a special guest. His name is Mark Scherer. And Mark is going to be talking to us today about a very interesting topic, brainwashing versus brain training. And let me tell you who Mark is so that you can understand why we're talking about this topic right now. So Mark is a successful life coach and entrepreneur. He's had the pleasure of working with thousands of individuals and leading classes for a wide variety of corporations like grocers, international accounting firms, leading forums, and for major Fortune 500 companies. As a certified business mentor, he specializes in applying his many modalities to help businesses, groups, families, and individuals identify, clarify, align, and implement their highest choices and visions. I've known Mark for a long time. So welcome, Mark. Thanks so much for being here today.
Yeah, thanks, Brandy. Glad to be here. And nice to meet you, Sean. Howdy.
Nice to meet you too, Mark.
So brainwashing is a thing. We've been talking a lot about this lately because of what we've seen happen in our country. I mean, we've been talking about it for a long time previously, but recently, propaganda is huge in our media and just in what we've been seeing. So what Sean and I have been talking about is how these things we've been seeing and hearing is trying to make us believe something that maybe we don't want to believe. So what I'm curious about, Mark, is how you help people with brainwashing or brain training. And first, I want to know the difference. Can you tell people the difference between those two things?
Yeah, I've been working on this as well. And one of the things we're doing in coaching is, you've heard the expression, the truth will set you free.
Yes.
So that's like a spiritual law, and that is a spiritual law. The truth will set you free. So brainwashing goes back to when people accept an original lie. And then once the person accepts an original lie, all the other lies get compounded upon it. Once somebody chooses lying, even though they may make up a lie about themselves, and then they'll create other lies to protect that lie, correct? So the original lie where people get snookered is people believe they're separate from source, separate from God, separate from life. And a lot of people say this is blasphemy, whatever. But have you ever been someplace where life isn't? Can you be somewhere with a place where life isn't? Because in scriptures, God is love, God is light, God is life, God is truth. So it's synonymous. So once we reassess that original belief and realize it's impossible to be separated from source, from life, from God, and that God is always for us, then it creates a feeling inside of us of security, right? Trust, respect, all those things begin to come in place. But if you believe you're separate from it, what shows up then? Fear, doubt, worry, grief, anger, all those things. And then once those chemical cocktails the body gets accustomed to it, and they're passed on from lineage to lineage to lineage to lineage to lineage. It's just like if somebody was doing cocaine in your lineage 10,000 years ago, and your whole family was raised on cocaine, the people would be doing it now and not even be aware that they're living in that. And they'd be addicted to it, wouldn't know what life was like without that cocaine there. So same thing. Once that lie is accepted, once that level of frustration, anger, resentment is present in the person's body, the next generation gets addicted to it as well. And to me, these chemicals the body produces are way more addictive than if somebody's doing an outside source. Popping a beer, shooting something in their arms, snorting something, smoking something. Because at least when they're doing it that way, they know they're putting something into their body. This is all done in our own body chemistry factory. And so once those lies get accepted, they can only see lies. Did you ever? Let me make a real quick analogy. Did you ever see there was an experiment they did with? They took little kittens and put them in a room, and they put one set of kittens in a room with all vertical obstacles, and another set of kittens in a room with all horizontal obstacles, and the kitten would go in there and play. Well, once they shifted the rooms, put the kittens in another room. The kittens in front of the horizontal obstacles couldn't see the vertical obstacles and would run into them. And the same thing the other way. They couldn't see them. They would be running into the horizontal obstacles. So once somebody has a certain, this chemistry is passed on and down and again, and that's all they can see is lies. They're living it. They don't know the difference. And that's the brainwashing piece. And they do it with languaging, little nudges, instead of saying possible effects of this drug or the side effects of this drug, or they use those little words that numb people to sleep, keep them in the trance. Mm-hmm. And there are studies about this.
So quick question about that. Is this something that is typically only done when a person is younger, like going through the stages of development, or can this be done at any point?
It's passed down.
Passed down from in DNA.
In DNA, genetic memories.
Mm-hmm.
It's passed down.
Bruce Lipton talks about that in his book, Biology of Belief, where, it's, and we've seen research recently where in spiders, I think there's a study in spiders where the spiders that were born of mothers who had the adaptation of being afraid of something, were also afraid of that mm-hmm. thing. It was very interesting.
Yeah, they put fleas in a box with the lid on it. The flea would jump up, hit the lid, jump up, hit the lid. Finally, they wouldn't jump up that high. Take the lid off, they wouldn't jump out of the box. Mm-hmm. Their offspring would only jump as high as the parents. They did it with monkeys. They did it with primates.
Wow.
I mean, this is genetic conditioning again and again and again and again, and this has been going on for millennia.
And so, but this can be changed, correct?
Yes. Yeah. For those of you, for any of the people out there who are black sheep of the family, congratulations. Look at this. Congratulations.
Yeah,
because
just a little bit.
Because you came into it to change it. You had a different level of sensitivity that you came into, and you were like, no, I'm not buying into this. I'm coming down to change this. Oh. So those of you who are black sheep, congratulations.
Yay. I like that. Celebrate that instead of making that a deficit.
Yeah. There you come down to resurrect the pattern.
So Sean, what's your experience in being a black sheep?
We have an hour. Yeah, it's good. That's a long story, but no. I mean, I think going to Juilliard probably helped me get to that level where it was just that was so antithetical to a lot of the things I'd been brought up in many ways, and not every way, but in many core ways. I kind of was brought into a very, very different place from going to college there, and I think. I was always a very open-minded kind of person. I always, as far back as I can remember, one of my earliest memories is of me stomping on grapes in front of some neighbor's house down the block from me because I thought the grapes were poisonous because they don't grow in this area. I was like, grapes don't grow here. They have to be poisonous, So I was always looking for, things like that. So I guess you could call me a conspiracy theorist even back then when I was 5 years old. But I mean, if you want to use that terminology, the quote unquote conspiracy theorist. But yeah, no, I have tried to remain as open-minded as possible throughout my life, generally speaking. I don't discount anything, and really, I guess as of maybe 2014, 2015, 2016, somewhere in that neighborhood, I started really kind of just looking into things that people always say, well, you really shouldn't look into that, or there's no reason to do that. very similar to the way Truman was already always told in the Truman Show. Oh, well, there's nothing left to, there's nothing left to investigate. There's nothing out there for you. What are you doing? There's no reason to. So I think things like that for me were always given, that I was going to kind of go out and just kind of explore the inner reaches of, whatever I thought about something that really I think that people just take for granted. And I think that's really where I've come from now, where all the things that I take for granted, I've actually reassessed and kind of looked back at generally, and that also is a part of my addiction recovery as well. I think a lot of that reassessment came from a lot of the addiction recovery as well. So,
Mark, can we go into that? Because this is something that when we talk about addiction recovery, I think a lot of people's ears perk up because I don't know anyone who hasn't been affected by addiction in some form or fashion. And how does brainwashing or brain training play a part in how susceptible someone is to addiction?
Yes. With people's, and by the way, I have experience in this, personal experience in all this as well. So I started drinking when I was 13, and I started doing drugs when I was 25. And pretty much, let's see, like all the above in that category. So I did a little bit of everything, sometimes all at the same time. So so by the time I'm 50, I was studying consciousness for a while, but I was still using, and I was disassociated from my feelings as well during that particular time. I was using it as a way to self-medicate. So we can train our brain to like through repetition to think different thoughts, to go instead of using the word addiction, you'll start using the word sobriety. I love being sober instead of fighting an addiction. I love being sober. Like one of the things like the 12-step program is, I'm an alcoholic and I'm powerless, right? Instead of saying I'm alcoholic and I'm powerless, say I'm sober and I reclaim my power.
I love that.
And that gives the person a sense of self-responsibility. So the training the brain thing and there's a lot of different ways to do it. The way we do it here is we change the person's feelings first. And once we change the person's feelings, it activates a new portion of the brain. And the brain becomes instantaneously trained in this new way. And once the genie's out of the bottle, it's really painful to go back into it. So it's an instantaneous pattern shift. I mean, people change their languaging, they change behaviors. One of my clients did a little class called Cravings and Their Causes. And unbeknownst to me, when this was a class I did online, somebody signed up for it. I really didn't know her but ahead of time. And she signed up for the class. And there was 2-hour sessions. The first 2-hour session, we're kind of just getting into it a little bit. The next 2-hour session, I worked with her for maybe 20 or 30 minutes. Unbeknownst to me at the time, she'd been drinking to pass out 3 to 4 nights a week and had been smoking cigarettes for 20-something years. And I worked with her for 20 or 30 minutes. That was the last time she did any of those behaviors.
Wow.
And she said she tried to have a drink and she put it into her mouth and she goes, it tastes like crap. She goes, I used to love the flavor of it. And oh yeah, you change your body chemistry. So everything that tasted good to you at that one level of body chemistry now tastes like crap. And she goes, I can't even drink this stuff anymore. So there was no fight with it. There was no give up to it. There was no anything. There was just an immediate change in the person's beingness, and those behaviors no longer fit in that way.
Yeah.
I've done this with people who are on crack that crack's, smoking meth, and that's pretty addictive stuff. And whenever I work with people doing these types of behavior changes, it's I don't talk with them about getting them off of drugs. What I'm doing is I'm helping them change the relationship to life by understanding how life works and spiritual law works. Once they begin to understand these laws and begin to apply them and begin to trust them as somebody trusts gravity, those behaviors just automatically leave. So there's no fight to it. All that stuff is flushed, super easy.
Yeah, I think I'm sorry to interrupt you, Mark, but what you're getting to a really good point. I think one of the stories that we've heard around changing behavior is that it takes time. or it takes a process, or it takes a lot of hard work, right? I think, again, those are kind of like stories that make us not want to do it, right? And make us not want to change our behavior or how we think or how we feel. Hence, why people continue to stay in that brainwashing loop. You find that's true?
And that's the lie. Oh, it's going to be really hard to change. No, actually, it's really hard to stay where you are. That's what's hard. Life, and people, well, I don't want to leave my comfort zone. Like you got to get out of your comfort zone. That's a lie.
Yeah.
People, it's your familiar zone. It's not your comfort zone, because many people are very familiar with being extremely miserable in life. So notice how people use all these words. I got to get on my comfort. Let's go get out of my comfort zone. I go, are you really comfortable? Well, no. Then see, they're telling themselves a lie already. Like, no. Now that you mentioned it, no. Awesome. Yeah, you're familiar with it. You've been familiar with it for 30 years.
Yeah. I'm thinking of some of Sean's friends right now when you say that.
It's true. I mean, I was in a meeting a little, yesterday, and yeah, one of the things they were talking about was you need to chase something else as hard as you chased your drink or your drug or whatever. And it's true. It's just you can shift that energy over from chasing, these stupid things that you're doing to yourself over to just chasing things that are better for you. And it's really you're transferring the energy from one thing to another, and that's, it really, like, when you wrap your brain around it, it's very simple to think about. It's more difficult in practice, obviously, because if you're addicted to a substance, there's a lot of process you have to go through for that substance to get out of your body. And, a lot of body chemistry literally will have to change over time. But yeah, it's one of those things where your mindset can change pretty quickly. And I saw another video just recently about it. Someone was talking about, how you can change your mindset about, envying people who drink or do drugs. And I don't really envy people who drink anymore, because I know what it makes me feel like. And I go, I don't want to feel like that anymore. I really don't. And that's why this time around, of me stopping, my drug of choice, which was alcohol, I feel different about it this time around, because I really do. My mind is kind of changed, where I go, I don't really want to feel like that anymore. Why would I? Why would I want to feel this way? So yeah, it really is kind of just a shift in my mentality, or in anyone's mentality, that you have to embrace, which again can be harder. It was much harder for me to do that. But again, I was probably brought up in the same lie that everybody else was brought up in, that it's going to take time. It's going to be really hard, things like that.
Yeah. And I could work with you on your language and shift that pattern very, very quickly. Mm-hmm. So one of the things, and when back to the original lie of being people are separated from God. When we believe we're separate from God, people will speak as I'm not, I don't. They're going to have their language is going to have a whole lot of knots in it. Oh. And
why is that?
We are an I am, not an I am not, or an I can't, or an I don't. We're an I am. We're an I can't. Mm-hmm. So when somebody's speaking knots, what that is, there's a direct correlation between the amount of knots a person is speaking and the level of anxiety in their life. Mm-hmm. And what they're doing is their knots are, every word I speak is a prayer coming in a manifestation. So when somebody speaking the word not, what they're doing is they're creating an unconscious manifestation. They're getting more and more what they don't want. Oh. Again and again and again and again. It's also a sign of suppressed anger and resentment. So when I started drinking at 13, I was pissed. I was pissed. When I started, so like when I worked with the lady who had been on alcohol for that long, she'd been on it for almost 30 years. I said, well, what's going on? When how old were you start drinking? She goes, I'm 14. I said, okay, so cool. I said, so you have a lot of things going on with your family? Oh, no, nothing. I said, yes, you did. I guarantee you did. Went back and found it, made a correction, found out what she did, what was going on with her. And then reversed that process. As soon as she reversed that process, everything changed. She was immediately off of it. Almost 30 years of drinking to blackout 3 or 4 nights a week. That's pretty serious alcohol issue. Yeah. And instantaneously off of it, done. So I've done it, and I worked with people on a lot of other drugs as well, and have similar results. As long as the person will play the game, instantaneous results.
Well, it's so funny, Mark. Before we started, you and I were talking, and we were talking about how I struggle sometimes with the lack of time with my daughter, my 4-year-old daughter. And see, I said it right. I said it right. But I kept saying, I have a child. You know, I have a husband. I have a partner. He's like, so you're not claiming it? You're like, hey, daughter. He's like, is it yours? Like, oh yeah. I mean, yeah. He's like, okay.
Yeah,
So
I said she's acting up before she told me she was acting up.
yeah.
And I said, because you're saying a daughter instead of my daughter, she feels she's separate. She doesn't feel secure with you. That's why she's acting up. But your language is producing that effect.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, absolutely. And so just in what Mark is, what I think you're saying is that we start by changing our language, changing our feeling and our language to create a different result.
Correct. Everything that's happening in our outer world is created from our inner. So rather than focusing on this to make changes out here, if I hate this because I hate something inside me, this is let me know I have hate inside me. If I manifest something I hate, it's not to punish me. It's to let me know, hey, Mark, you got something you hate inside you. Go in and find your hate.
Right. It's something inside. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I love it. And so what I'm piecing it together in terms of like the brain training. So we've been brainwashed since we were born, before we were born, basically. And then if we want to recognize that and retrain our brain to do it differently, there's definitely what you do. I know there's a lot of other people who do it in a different kind of way. And I find it fascinating. But in terms of like brain training, what would you say is the single one of the things that we can do to start, besides what we just talked about, like changing our language?
Wherever you are, whatever's going on in your life, make it okay. You got to get to a place of neutrality. And then Bruce Lipton and they all talk about to find a place of neutrality. And there also talks about so forgive your mom, forgive your dad, all those things.
Right.
That's cool. That's what most other modalities talk about. But there's one other step we do here that's a little bit different. There's another way of taking that forgiveness a little bit further, because forgiveness only gets us back to a place of neutrality. It really doesn't. How to say this? What we're doing here is we're the endocrine system. If everybody heard of that, it produces chemicals we recognize as feelings. Pineal gland, imagination, enthusiasm. Pituitary gland produces the chemicals for intuition. The thyroid produces the chemicals for authorship. The thymus produces chemicals for fear and courage, as a gateway from fear to courage. So what we're doing here is we're firing up the endocrine system, which is another way of saying chakras. And so to fire it up to the way that we're doing it here, the person actually has to find what they're thankful for in that experience. Great. And I've worked with people who have been involved in, I can say it on this show, MK Ultra, sex trade.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about
really, really, really serious. I mean, when I worked with 4 different women, I got introduced to from 4 different people. I started working with those people. It was wild, the stories, and helping put them back together again. And when I first started hearing it, my initial response was, let's go shoot some people, because there was, it was sick, but if I have that mentality, I can't help that person.
That's right.
Yeah.
There's no sympathy in our system. Let's find the meaning in it. And that every one of these women who had gone through this horrendous stuff, they all found the blessing in it. And once they found the blessing in it, they were finally free to live their own life. And I saw a really cool a video on Facebook or YouTube or something somebody had sent me. And it said the greatest feelings we can have as humans. Sex is an 8 out of 10. Psychedelics are a 9 out of 10. And the only thing that's a 10 out of 10 is a conscious use of our co-creative gift. So most people get, if they're, I was have some scars or whatever, whatever that's happened in my childhood. So those things, I got sidetracked along the way. I kind of got wrapped up into sex and drugs, rock and roll stuff for a while.
Yeah.
But now, once there was that pain was still there in those things. I was trying to use it to cover up, but it was a good feeling, but it was still there. So now, man, I love what I'm doing. It's so fun. It happened. Shifts can happen so quickly.
I love it. That's fantastic. So, when thinking about how to train our brain, it doesn't sound like it's something that we can easily do ourselves. It sounds like we probably need some help from somebody like you or from somebody who knows how to do these things. Do you think there's any danger in trying to do some of it ourselves?
No. I mean, start finding ways to do it. But we have some really simple techniques. The techniques are very simple to get, and to begin to understand them, I guess you could say. I've been doing this studying consciousness for 35 years, been doing this modality for about 15, and I'm still beginning to get it. I mean, when a kid first starts to walk, right? If they fall down, I mean, yes, they can walk, but they're beginner. And even, we stay a beginner. Be gentle on yourself. That's the key. Keep the beginner mindset. Masters. You've talked to a master, and how do you become a master? I'm not really a master. I'm still a beginner. I mean, keep the beginning mindset. Your mastery will always continue to grow. So we have some, like I said, we have some really, really simple techniques. We share with people, and once they get the technique, they can repeat it over and over and over again, and just become greater and greater level of mastering it. It's easy to use a technique when everything's going hunky-dory in your life, and the most important time to be able to use it is if the chips are down. Like, what do you do if there's a kerfluffle that shows up?
Yeah. And
you got to be able to imagine how you're going to respond to a kerfluffle before it ever shows up. You got to be able to language it, decree it. Oh yeah, if something comes up, I make sure I take a deep breath. And what you're doing during those periods of time is you're programming your subconscious to do it for you. So the mind processes information between 40 to 2,000 bits of information per second. The subconscious processes information between 20 million to 400 billion bits of information per second. So what we're doing is we're helping the person program their subconscious and keep it out of their conscious mind. That's the key. It becomes automatic, and programming the subconscious, all it takes is thoughts, words, and feelings. If it hasn't gone in, the person hasn't felt it deeply enough for it to shift.
And I know from just practicing some of these things myself, not necessarily with you, but other types of practitioners who work with this, is you feel it when it comes up, like, because it's emotional. It's almost like the body is saying, that's the one. That's the one you need to address.
Yeah, the tears are the old personality dying and the new personality coming into being simultaneously. And also the person's body temperature will rise several degrees during this process as well. A person will start to sweat profusely, and that's when they're rewriting their DNA.
Amazing how the body, and I always say that too when I'm teaching, like, the body never lies. The body will always tell you the truth.
Always tells the truth. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, we do a class on body language that's way different than body language from other people as well. And we also do this thing called I Talk, which I'll share with you a little bit as well. But we can, I can read somebody's eyes and I can tell you, it's like a Myers-Briggs test or DISC test on steroids, way more detailed. And it's a movement in consciousness, not I'm an ISTP or an ENTJ, or here's my label, and here's how you got to interact with me. Or I'm a Leo and you're all those things.
That's what I said earlier. He's like, that astrology stuff is crap. don't put
it shows tendencies, but I'm in control of it.
Yeah.
I'm in control of my life. I get to decree my life. But
Right.
Yeah, going back to, I think, where I am with the whole addiction thing, I think that's what's different for me as well, is like, I feel like I'm more in control of my life. And that's what kind of shifted for me. Once that shifted and I felt like I was more in control, actually things stopped spinning out of control. That whole powerless thing, I was taking back my power at that time without even really knowing it. And I think it's good to admit that, alcohol is a powerful thing, because it can do really powerful things to you if it gets you physiologically, which it had me without a doubt. and still does. But yeah, I think that reclaiming my power and my control over it was pretty paramount to the way I'm feeling, for the last 6 months or so, or maybe even longer at this point. So
well, congratulations, dude.
yeah, no, I definitely, yeah, it's been great. The last 6 months have just felt, very, very different from the last, several years of trying to stop,
Yeah, well, let's just try not, do or not do.
Exactly. Yeah, that's really what it comes down to.
Awesome. Mark, you've given us some really great information here today. I know there's a lot of people who can benefit from the things that you've said and also from just the work that you do. How can people get in touch with you if they have some questions?
You can email me at mark@encompasslife.com.
Okay. I was actually going to put that up and I didn't. Let me get a banner real quick.
Yeah. And our
website
is Encompass, www.encompasslife.com. And, I'm the founder and CEO of the company and came with this system called the Quantum Leap Technique. But we also have an online university for people who are interested in becoming coaches. I'm training people in our modality as well. And it takes about a year to come through our system. So it's pretty, there you go. Awesome. Thank you. So it's pretty involved. We have a lot of introductory classes as well where we're getting ready to redo our website. We're going to start offering subscription models as well. So we'll have some monthly subscriptions for like a good, better, best type of a deal as well.
Awesome.
And we do offer some live in-person classes. I'm doing a class, in fact, called How to Wow, April 1st through the 3rd in Jacksonville, Florida. And that helps people get out of the monkey mindset of how am I going to do this? A lot of people have great ideas, but then they get bogged down in the how. So this gets people out of how and takes them to producing a breakthrough result in a matter of seconds.
So is it how, as in how, learn how to wow, or is it from how to wow?
From how to wow.
Okay, got it.
And most people say, oh wow, that was easy. Like, oh, how am I going to do this? How am I going to do it? What am I going to do? Like all that mind chatter, people get. I've been lost in that for decades, And so to be able to go from everything I'm doing in this company, I've used that technique. So for me, it's fast. Yeah. Super fast. And basically what we're doing is we're remembering from a future rather than remembering from a past. Christ gave thanks for the miracles he had not yet performed, for he knew they would be there.
Yes.
So that's an interesting spiritual law. So here's a little tidbit. The key is to feel something brand new. Not something, oh yeah, I remember when I had fun in the past. No, flush all that. Feel something brand new. Feel love at 10 times, 100 times greater than you've ever been able to feel up till now. And most people, well, how am I going to do that? What am I like? Shut up. Just sit until you can give it to yourself until, for me, my breathing slows down, my shoulders relax, my chest, and then I'm okay. And then I'll remember. And then what happens for me is all of a sudden, instead of like trying to visualize something or conjure up a vision of what I think I want, like all mental, all of a sudden I'll just get a movie. Here's a vision. But I have to feel something brand new to be able to access it.
So it's so great. That's such a great tidbit because, we talk a lot about the subconscious mind and about the conscious mind. Very few people talk about the superconscious mind. And what you're talking about when you talk about vision and envisioning things comes from the superconscious, something you've never experienced before. That's that's like the version of you that's on top of the mountain that can see 360 all around, right? That has this incredible view. And we don't tap into it enough. We don't go there enough.
You get a couple more minutes, I'll share something that really personal with me.
Yeah.
So my childhood, my dad was a strong disciplinarian. I got popped frequently as a kid. And I had a speech impediment as a child. If I said a word incorrectly, I would get yelled at or hit or whatever. And a lot of other things. Mostly what I remember from from growing up was being hit by my dad. It was like pretty intense. And my brother is 7 years younger than me. And I didn't talk to I quit calling my parents, mom and dad when I was 12 or 13 years old. That's how wound up I was about it. So that didn't go over very well at all, because that involved even more punishment. But I didn't talk to him I talked to my mom and dad for about 13 years. And when I finally started talking to him again, and I could say mom and dad, but it's more like mom, dad, you could still feel the charge in it. So anyway, my dad passed a couple weeks ago, and I went down for the rosary and funeral. We had made peace. I knew he was dying. We'd made peace over the last 20 or so years. And I would go down and see him quite a bit. And my brother was giving the eulogy. And my brother's talking about his relationship with my dad. And he's saying, my dad was my best friend. He was my mentor. He taught me how to do this. He taught me how to do this. He taught me about family. And I'm just sitting here going, who the hell is he talking about? Who are you? For
Totally
real, who's he
different
talking about?
experience.
And when I said that, as soon as I'm thinking it at the eulogy, I'm thinking it. And all of a sudden I get a flashback to when I'm in my 20s. And I never had kids because I wanted to make sure the pattern of abuse stopped with me. And as soon as he said that, and I was sitting here going, who is he talking about? How did he had this? How did all this happen for him? Got a little jelly, but I was like, I said, I'm a little jelly, but I'm really glad he got to have the experience. As soon as I thought that, I remembered saying the pattern stopped with me, and I went, oh my God.
It did.
The pattern did stop with me.
It did.
The pattern stopped with me. The pattern stopped with me, and so I saw this whole package of, the pattern stopped with me. My brother had a beautiful experience with my dad. My dad healed whatever it was in him, whatever him and I had with us, whatever that did, healed something in him too from my brother. And it motivated me to do what I'm doing. And I just went, oh my God. I mean, we were getting along okay, but now I'm like, oh my God. In fact, I had a dream about my dad last night. And in my dream, I told my dad how much I loved him.
Oh, wow.
And that was like the first time,
Yeah. Wow.
And
Those are great.
wow.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So, all these things I thought were really painful as a kid. People who have those experiences, golly, that's your rocket fuel, man.
Mm-hmm.
You go in there and you'll find something inside there that's going to propel you to things with amounts of love and appreciation, gratitude for life that you couldn't even begin to imagine mentally.
Yeah.
So that's what we do here, and I got a whole team of people who have all done this for themselves too. So
That's such a powerful story, Mark. Thank you for sharing that.
you're welcome.
Yeah, dreams like that are great.
Amazing. That's amazing. That's how right? Wow, this is something that's profound. And it touches people because there are people out there who are estranged from their parents.
Yeah.
Who've never spoken to their parents in years, or who haven't spoken to their parents in years.
Yeah. And me may be right, who've never really spoken with their parents. They may have spoken at them, but never spoken with them.
That's right. That's right. And from what I understand about source relationships, that's the closest thing you have to source. Is it not?
And we made a soul contract to do this for each other.
Mm.
And people are going, what about kids who come in sick or whatever? Yeah, even those type of things, I can help that person find the blessing in it.
That's right. The blessing, the gratitude.
I mean, we look at it from the little 3D world, but I mean, our souls are eternal. Imagine a soul coming down to out of pure love to bring a lesson to someone.
Mm-hmm.
Even aborted babies. I mean,
yes,
all of it there's a lesson in it all, and you can see it. And it's a visceral experience.
Oh, yes, absolutely. You've given us so much to think about, Mark. Thank you so much for being here today. Sean, do you have any questions for Mark? Do you want to add anything?
No, not really. I mean, this brings me back, like I said, really to a lot of the stuff I've gone through with the addiction, and I think I'll relate something very quickly. Like, I had one time where I tried to stop suddenly drinking, and I had a very, very profound, like, visionary experience for, like, probably a full day or two. It turned into like a paranoid delusion at one point, but beyond that, I there was some hallucinations involved, and it was wild. I approached them with my therapist at the time, and we had talked through them, and I did find the blessing in them finally. In the beginning, I was really scared, thinking, "Oh my God, I'm losing my mind" or whatever. But it was just a product of my brain, malfunctioning, and a product of me receiving something that I needed to receive at that time, which I definitely, without a doubt, wrapped my brain around and said, wow, that was really interesting, because I was really kicking myself for being the addict that I was, or being the alcoholic that I was. And I was kicking myself and kicking myself. And I was seeing all these visions of things that were happening that were so much worse than what I was going through.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, maybe God is trying to make me feel like, stop being so, over, aggrandizing, that kind of thing. But no, I think God was trying to tell me, there are people who are way worse than you and who mean ill upon other people. You should stop kicking yourself. You're not a bad person because of this. And I really kind of took that lesson and twisted it around. And I really, I kept that to heart. And I was like, yeah, you know what? That's how I should be looking at this, And yeah, finding the blessing in any of those experiences, I think, is the key to getting through them, the best way that you can, and, those experiences helped me shape who I am now, and they do shape who I am now, and yeah, no, there's some great stuff in there, Mark. Thanks so much for sharing it with us.
You're welcome, sir.
Very cool.
Mhm.
Well, we're gonna have to end it now, because we could talk all day about this. I find it so fascinating and interesting, because this is what we do. We want to help people. We're here to support and to help, and also to just also connect, right? Like connect and build community. And you can't do that unless you release some of those things that build those aversions to others. Because sometimes when people say something, you go, "Oh God, I don't want to hear that crap," But instead, being open to listening and to being present with what they're saying and what I'm feeling about what they're saying is really a turning point, I think, for unity, for bringing people together. Yeah.
Yes.
Mark, anything else you want to add before we go?
No, thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate both of you, and nice to meet you, Sean. And
Likewise.
Brandy looking great. So
Thank you, Sean. Thank you, Mark and Sean. You guys are awesome. You guys are amazing. And thank you so much for listening today and for watching. We'll see you next